For me, being more proactive really means catching things like when the whispers start and being part of that conversation or even starting that conversation earlier on so that you're not missing these things by the time they become screams. It's almost like we're stuck in an echo chamber in CS so often when we are in this reactive stage, and it's so easy to stay there because these things happen that are so urgent, they're so top of mind. So how much can you really change? Proactive is when you start to think bigger picture and like, what is scalable? Like, what can I do today to see results tomorrow? That mind shift. But it's when you start thinking about the next day rather than the day that already passed. That to me is the real change.
Spotlight, brought to you by CSM Focus, where we refine customer success, uniting GTM teams across North America. Welcome to Spotlight, powered by CSM Focus, where we unpack great customer success. Vinova Deniz, head of CS at Wiza, and a true startup operator, from being the canvas for CS hire to leading data-driven, revenue-aligned teams, built success from the ground up. She's also the champion of communities, leading the Women of CS chapter, monitoring the next generation of CS professionals. Vinova, so glad to have you here tonight.
And this is great. Thank you.
Yeah, first questions. Can you share a little bit of your journey, how to get into CS, and what initially draw you into this field?
I don't think anyone goes into the world thinking they're going to be in CS. I certainly did not think I would end up in CS. I was in hospitality before this, somewhat customer focused for sure, but definitely never saw myself in tech. I ended up in CS completely by mistake. I thought maybe I would end up being an AE. It wasn't. Hate to the salespeople. I've got a great relationship with my sales team. It's just not my bread and butter. The relationship aspect and the ownership of CS really spoke to me. I'm a very type A person, so it was a natural fit for me to move into CS. And I particularly absolutely loved CS in early stages. And so I've done CS in a few different capacities now. I've done digital CS. I've done CS like after getting like private equity bought. Like I've seen kind of the full gambit. And at this point in my career, I'm very drawn to and focused to like early stage CS. It's a little messy and I kind of like it. Like I like bringing order to things. I like being the connective tissue between a customer and the product and the sales team and just kind of like that voice of the customer. It almost feels like you are a little bit of a hype girl. Like you are the cheerleader of the org. You're the cheerleader of the customer. You get to kind of chat and yap with everyone. Yeah, CS by accident is kind of the best response I've got.
I think everybody didn't really start in CS. They started somewhere. For teacher, sales, or even, like you said, from any industry.
Right.
It's everywhere. It's not only in tech. That's kind of where I come down to.
Totally.
Since you have been in the messy startup stage,
Messy.
I found in the startup, it's really easy to fall into like really reactive. So how do you switch out of that mindset from reactive to proactive?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's a couple of ways you can think about it, and any strategy you try and apply to switching from reactive to proactive takes time. CS across the board is a lagging indicator with things like retention and renewal. These things are happening more frequently on a yearly basis. You could have this incredible program in place, and if you start on day one, it's not until day 366 that you're truly seeing those on paper results. And so for me, part of being proactive instead of reactive is taking into account the full gambit of what CS does, delivers results in the long term. Recently, we just launched a new product called Monitor. It is my favorite thing to talk about, so bear with me. It's a really cool tool because it tells you people, in this case, your champions, your economic buyers, whoever is important, whoever you've built that relationship with, move roles or change companies. I find oftentimes when we're talking about reactive CS, it's slow CS. Like that's the other word for it. Reactive is, my dog is reactive. The Amazon man comes up, she barks. Like that is right on cue. That is quick. She's going to bark. And that's kind of how CS works, except it's not as instantaneous as what just happened. Maybe 90 days. Every time you have a QBR, my champion left 90 days ago. Now you're slow on the uptick. So for me, being more proactive really means catching things like when the whispers start and being part of that conversation or even starting that conversation earlier on so that you're not missing these things by the time they become screams. It's almost like we're stuck in an echo chamber in CS so often when we are in this reactive stage. And it's so easy to stay there because these things happen that are so urgent. They're so top of mind. So how much can you really change? Proactive is when you start to think bigger picture and like, what is scalable? Like, what can I do today to see results tomorrow? That mind shift. But when you start thinking about the next day rather than the day that already passed, that to me is the real change. So I don't know if that answered your question. I know my dog interrupted in the middle of that, but hopefully that gave some context.
I need to put sound effects right there.
Right.
Well, you're kind of saying it's like there's signals way before the actual, even though we measure renewals, churn, these are happening after a year or things later. How do you catch that before that? I was literally talking to someone like, hey, this person's leaving, resign, so what's happening next? How do you catch that? It's not like stalk somebody on LinkedIn and find suddenly a new job alert, right? There's something going on there.
I think health scores are inherently reactive tools. By the time a health score drops from green to yellow, by the time you are in red, you are too late. You missed the signal. By the time you get that bounce back email, it's over. The signaling that needs to be accounted for, the things you need to start kind of paying attention to, are a little bit less of like X equals Y, but how X is changing. When I think about health scores, what I'm looking for more than anything isn't did they log in 5 times or did they pay their quarterly invoice on time? It's more that there's some sort of delta change in behavior. They were logging in 5 times. Now they're logging in 4 times, then 2 times. I don't want to know when it hit 2. I want to know it when from a consistent 4 to when it starts dropping off. And it might be that Shannon had a baby. She went on maternity leave. Okay, great. Who is owning this product during that time? Let me talk to that person. Let's make them a champion too. Shannon comes back. Now I've got 2 people at company X who I'm close with and can talk to all the time, right? The health scores typically give you something that's already happened in the past. What does the business intelligence tell us overall? And then how do you know that those delta changes actually are indicative of something that should raise an alarm? I think any change raises an alarm, right? It's like something changed for some reason. Could be a very positive thing. Those things could be expansion opportunity, an acquisition, and suddenly the company is looking to grow their plan with you. Or it's an acquisition and the company's looking to totally scrap you because they have something else. Any change, I think, is worth kind of noting. I think there's so many great tools that give you the bare minimum. And so I think it really is a matter of finding the ways to have these signals turn into playbooks for you and give you that sense of like, I know it's happening before it happens. Like I'm reaching out to the customer and saying, this is what changed. Your AEs are behaving differently. Like, how does this affect you? And customers respond really positively to that for the most part. It isn't a QBR where I'm like, hey, it's been 90 days. Should we talk about where you're sending your kids to summer camp? People don't want to do that anymore. So, I'm a little bit of a hater of a QBR, a hater of a health score. I am more in the camp of you have a CRM, you have a lot of data. Like, what can you do with it? And then go from there.
Yeah, like you said, so many great tools out there. I'm also a little on the no health score side because we think it's like 10% this, 20% that. But it's not true. You mentioned it's delta. Is an engagement. Are they even opening up emails anymore? Meeting. These are, like you said, the delta change. Plus, I think there is a bigger market signal that CS need to be looking out for. Like what?
Exactly. That's truly what I think. Reactive means you're too late. Reactive means you're slow. The turtle doesn't win this race. The folktale, I get it. That's wrong. The person who trained the most wins this race. Could not agree more.
There is a stat that really, like when a champion leaves or a new champion be on board.
Oh, I love this stat. The stat you're talking about, it's something about how in the first 90 days of moving to a new role, that's when your budget's getting spent, right? That's when people are going in. It's their first 30, 60, 90. they're handed a new budget, they have something to prove. It is the time to kind of put into place the tools and products that you need to execute the vision for the rest of the year. From a sales perspective, that makes a lot of sense. There's a reason that majority of my customers are salespeople, RevOps, AEs, etc. This drives me crazy that more CSMs aren't on it. This is, I think, so valuable because not only does it indicate to a CSM that, hey, that means someone new is in there with the new budget. Now go figure out who your new champion is. If someone new comes in, that person's ready to be resold, right? In a year, if you have new product like we do, if you have new line items, if you have been speaking every single time about something you know is going to give these people value, and that person was not your bestie, you have a new bestie. That is your new person to go to and talk to. And then you also have somebody new at a completely different company. Like suddenly that account doubled in both directions. It's such a missed opportunity for people to wait until they're introduced to a champion, until they're settled in, until they got used to their new role. If you're part of their tech stack, you should be talking to them in those first 30 days. Like, I would not enter a company and not know what my tools are. Like, anyone saying that to you is lying. And I think to be like, hey, no problem, I'll wait until you're ready, means that your tool's not important to them day to day. So like, what's going on? I think those are the kinds of things where the signals are there. You just need to be a little bit savvier about what they truly mean to you. You're not starting at a new company and being like, oh, my Gmail, I'll get to it later. That's not how it works. That's just not the smart way. First 90 days. I mean, we see that in CS all the time with onboarding. First 90, that's where it's at.
This is kind of surprised me. Well, not surprised if you are a new CS on other side.
So what I would do as a new CS in 90 days, it's a good question. I think when you're thinking about tools and your first 90 days and the tools you're looking at as a new CSM, CS is one of those fields where everything is such a lagging indicator. You don't know you need a CS tool until it's too late. And the only people who believe you need a CS tool are CSMs, right? For the most part, the sales team's using something, your RevOps team is using something else. Like, CS is last in the hierarchy of the sales process. It simply is the timeline. You go to marketing, from marketing, you go to sales, from sales, there's post sales. Like, that is kind of how tools kind of come to be. From a CS standpoint, I can speak from my own experience at Canva. Our procurement process takes longer, but it is top of mind. And I am that acting champion. Whether or not sign a piece of paper in 90 days is less important. There's probably internal conversations that need to be had that I'm not a part of. I appreciate it when people ask me about my timeline and process, but just to be in the forefront of that person's mind in the first 90 days is enough, right? Because eventually when we bring a CS tool onto Wiza, I've got one or two favorites. I did that in my first 90 days. I might not hit their quota this quarter, but quarter 3 or 4, I'm in. You convinced me 90 days in that this was the tool for me. Now I'm prepping everything to transition into that tool. At least I have some direction because we've all lived through the tool transition nightmare. I didn't buy the tool, but 90 days in, I'm thinking about ways to make the transition easier because I was already sold on its value. So that's where the 90 days comes in, at least for me. But I have a pretty good idea of which ones I'd want at this point.
Yeah. So 90 days, it is a magical number if you think of onboarding.
Yeah. Always 90 days. Your QBR, it's 90 days. Your renewal goes out 90 days. It's like this 90-day cycle. It's the reality of how businesses run. So I think CS lining up with that is only a natural fit.
We're going to talk more about a proactive approach to CS. On top of watching for the champions, new hires, leaving, all these champions, what other things will you do to be proactive and retention?
Totally. I think you alluded to it earlier. I definitely believe in strong adoption and usage metrics, tracking what usage looks like and being able to say this type of usage equates to this kind of ROI, which gives you this kind of value, is the formula. I think that's simple and true when we're talking about SaaS. The input should give you this output that equals this sort of value to the customer. When I was at Canva, for example, we didn't really care about retention. Retention came naturally. People loved Canva. Retention wasn't a problem. We had enough PLG business to offset with B2B world. Retention wasn't what we measured our CS team on. We measured our CS team on adoption and user metrics, logins that a person has, the amount of time they spent in a design, the amount of designs they actually publish and create. Those adoption metrics are the metric at the end of the day that's going to give you the most insight into what your customers are doing regularly. Change, that's an indication of the way they're using your platform, and why they're changing is important, and what other tools they might be using, or what product gaps they're seeing, or if they're super users now and something has changed in their usage. Do they have a big campaign coming up? Is there something that can help them? Are they pulling all this data because they're doing some sort of big refresh that CRO and their finance team really cares about that I can help support? Is this my champion's promotion project that I can help them through? I think that adoption, we know why things are in place in the product. We understand the value that those features in the product bring. Anything that we have in Wiza has a purpose behind it that brings value to the customer. If they are participating in those activities, then I know they're getting that value. When we do talk about renewal, I can always lean on those. My goal is to be able to tell that story 90 days before renewal or whatever it might be, that I don't need to wait till 90 days. The moment there is some sort of change in that usage is the moment I want to know something is happening, big or small, anything out of the norm that we have set from the moment they're done onboarding. I do think that there is a little bit of planning that needs to be done of like what changes matter. And I think those are different customer to customer across the segments that we set, if they're different based on the industry, even seasonally for everyone. I think there's very different ways of looking about it, and you just kind of have to let the data tell you. I can take a very educated guess, but this is the first year that Wiz having a CS motion, right? I might be super wrong, and I'm not going to know until next year. But I have a good guess based on some of the conversations I've had. There is a lot of trial and error between what is proactive and what is actually worth your time versus seeing all the proactive indicators, signals. You get all the data, and then you kind of have to decide like which one of these do I regularly want to get? And then you can build your playbooks from there.
When you mentioned about signal, we touch a little bit about QBRs. What's your ideal business review? How would you change it to be more proactive and useful for the customer?
Yeah, I don't love the term business review because in a good product, I don't need to be the person reviewing. I would like the customer to be able to go in and see what their usage is. I want them to know how they're using it. That is part of owning a platform, loving a platform, like being a champion, is that they know what's going on in the product. So I don't want to sit on a business review and say, you've used half your credits this month. They know it's a waste of everyone's time. The conversations I'd rather be having, if I'd call them anything else, I'd probably call them account planning what their goals are in the future, what they need as a business overall, what their objectives are, and really build a map. Here are the products we have. Here are the goals that you have. Here's what you have today. Here's where we want to go. Work on building that bridge, a workshopping capacity. I would say that time even being used in some sort of reverse demo situation, like, hey, show me what you're doing today, or show me what you have been doing over the last couple of weeks for this project. Show me the workaround that you found. Once they've been in your product for a while, they haven't done a demo in a year. There's something new there, and they probably changed the way they're doing things. It's worth knowing how your customer is approaching that, what their new goals are, and then recalculating and recalibrating the route you're on with them to make it make sense for the rest of the account and to plan accordingly. You have to onboard. If you don't onboard, you've lost the renewal 364 days in advance. Good luck after renewal. I can't help you there. For the rest of the year, for me, I love knowing what a customer's fiscal year is and planning accordingly. I think that the fiscal year and that churn is probably the scariest point for a lot of people. It's where a lot of tools get cut. I think it's where a lot of people kind of make decisions that you should be ahead of. There is nothing wrong with really asking a customer, what is your fiscal year? When is your team making these kinds of decisions? And like that is probably closer to the time that I would want to have these conversations. I don't want every 90 days from when you signed a contract with me. What does it matter to your team, to your procurement team, to your accounting team? That's really kind of how you have to plan. Top of the year for a good chunk of people, but everybody's out for the holidays. So when do you do it? Mid-January? Do you do it in October? That ends up being a really busy time of year for me. I feel like September is another big one where a lot of people are having their fiscal years then. End of summer, beginning of school, like these tricky times for people is what you're really playing with. Answer the question.
Okay. First of all, I don't like the idea of quarterly business review. Chad said that they actually call it checkpoint. The checkpoint of where you are. Like you said, something's like account planning or success plan, like mutual plan
Yeah.
sales, but it's actually success planning together.
I typically call mine account planning. I feel like success planning gives
Too
people the
vague.
ick now. It gets a little too formal. It gets a little scary. My calendar is open. Everyone has access to it all the time. I always ask customers, what are you trying to get out of this call? And depending on that, 9 times out of 10, it is something to do with account planning. My default setting is account planning.
Yeah. What do you do? Customer success. What does that even mean?
We're here to help.
I want to go back to the idea of champion. How do you identify champion? How do you
Yeah,
use that signal when turn
totally.
a new customer into a champion, or when they leave, what did you do after that? How would you do it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think between champion and economic buyer, this gets a little bit confusing, specifically RevOps, right? Like who is signing, who matters, who are you talking to? My signer is my economic buyer, my executive buyer, the person filling out the PO. And those people are important. And I try and get them as involved as possible, whether it be CCing them on a recap of an account plan or just checking in every now and then, even if it's just adding them on LinkedIn and being like, hey, your CSM here, just checking in, wanted to introduce myself. Anything to make your name and product known to that person is important. But your champion, your economic buyer, is the person who is going to be onboarding everybody else to your tool, right? When somebody new gets hired or somebody at that company gets fired, they are looking at the data from your tool and making it part of that day to day. They're actually the person who's dripping that stickiness level throughout every single day rather than from the top down. I think a lot of tools get sticky from the bottom up. Was like our CEO, not the biggest fan of Notion. I think just doesn't love putting together Notion pages, but I love Notion and a couple of people on our team who also love Notion. I would bet if you asked me a year from now, we're still going to be using Notion because everybody else who's using it on a day-to-day is using it in these conversations, using it for their different kind of like knowledge hubs. We are using it as part of our product roadmap. The day-to-day people using it are who's making it sticky. Steven's going to sign that, right? If we are all using it as part of our core curriculum every single day, he's not going to fight us on that. I understand that there is this huge push in CS to have this executive buyer signer alignment. Change management is hard. Whoever is championing and running that change management at that org, I'd like to support them. That's the person I want to go with because they're the person who's going to make this.
Is my kind of RevOps here. How do you tag this person? Is this
right? Oh my God, like I love my RevOps team, but sometimes I'm like, no, tag some. I'm like, just put a button down.
Yeah. There is a big push about executive alignment. So it's very risky only have one champion and don't know. But like you said,
Absolutely.
like, send a quick message to the buyer.
Yeah. Alignment doesn't need to be crazy. Alignment also doesn't need to come from the CSM. I'm very fortunate where we have a VP of RevOps and we sell to a lot of RevOps people. If I wanted to tap her on the shoulder and be like, hey, Jess, would you mind shooting a quick hello to this person? I can't speak their language. I'm CS. I can say hi. I can do my best. But they might want to talk to someone who is a peer. I know I love talking to other CS people. So that even means me drafting the email and it just being pushed from her email because she hit send. That is executive alignment, right? It's not CSM to an individual. And this idea that it is the one person with the checkbook and with the pen is so outdated, in my opinion. But yeah. I'm going to get so much hate from so many people in CS.
No, this is good because it's probably very obvious for sales, but for CS to learn what is, even understanding what the digital sales room. It's just like a portal when you can pre-sale, they have all the communication together, customer portal. That's really just a common space. And with champion, with multi-threading, these are sales skills, but it's very important today because we do need
100%. Yeah. And I think that in CS, I talk about this a lot, but I don't think you can teach soft skills as well as you can teach tools. More today than ever, those soft skills in CS are so important. AI is going to take care of the noise. The part that's becoming more and more important about my job are the people skills. I feel like all of these walls between products, sales, RevOps, they're all coming down. Like the robots are going to take care of all of that. We've got automation and AI. What's becoming more and more important is telling the story, understanding it, having more of those soft skills. I am looking forward to the day that there aren't these memes out there of how much all these departments hate each other, because that's just not the landscape that we're playing in anymore.
It's very blurry right now, like you said. And well, startup is blurry for sure. Yeah, we're all working towards the same goal, which is having that value for the customer.
Totally.
I want to move into, I know they say CS is evolving. Where do you see us going?
I'm a strong believer in CS being quite literally the backbone of every company. I am obviously incredibly biased in that, but I truly do not believe there is another role that has as much customer insights or has the kind of pulse on the customer and what is going on in the company more than CS does. I think there will be a rise in the CCO role, this idea of support CS, customer facing roles taking backstage is going to die out sooner rather than later. I think all the walls are going to come down. Having the customer's voice in your back pocket is going to be paramount for a lot of these SaaS companies, especially considering that the people who are winning because they're listening to their current customers, what your current customers want, what your current customers are requesting. The reasons that your current customers are churning are the reason you're not going to sign future customers or your future customers are going to churn. Those are the SaaS companies that are going to get sticky and win long term. I think CS is moving out of reactive in general. I think CS is also moving out of this ambiguous world. I think CS falling very neatly under a revenue umbrella makes a lot of sense. There was a time that CS kind of fell into the abyss of support. It's a revenue engine, right? Like it's part of retention. It isn't a cost center anymore. It should be revenue driving. And so seeing CS move there in the last couple of years has been awesome. I think it's going to move even past that more into like product, customer marketing, and voice of the customer land. And I'm excited about that. I'll be talking about that till I'm blue in the face, ready for that world.
How do you prioritize the current product, like customer asks, and your future feature? How do you balance that?
Canva is a phenomenal product. You talk about any good product, Canva's being mentioned in the first 3 names somebody's putting out there, right? It's one of the giants as far as good products go. We have a very good product as well. I wouldn't have joined the company if we didn't have a good product. We have a really good product team at Wiza. And the way that I've approached it, and this is how I've always approached product, is I'm going to go with the customer's ideal outcome to these kinds of conversations and let them figure it out. I have no business telling developers or product people what to do with the product. I don't like it when people come to me with a solution. I'm not going to do that to them. I think that's part of the riff, right? Sometimes people will go to a product or a developer and say, hey, we need this feature. When really it's like, no. What you need is this result. How you get to that result is actually going to be very different depending on what this developer's skill set is, what's already on the product roadmap. Like there are a million questions that I don't know the answer to. And frankly, I don't want to, right? Like I do not have all day to go get a computer science degree. My CS is customer success. So what's important to me is, did they get the success out of this thing that was a blocker for them? I wish I had a magic wand answer to be like, this is how you work with products. I go to them with an outcome that I want and almost always get a yes. Any good organization would prioritize the things your customer is saying based on what's going to drive value for the customer. It might not be exactly the way the customer needs it done or what they asked for. But if they're getting the same result, it does not matter how you get there. It's the fact that you got there and you drove the value. At the end of the day, that's what's more important.
If the customer want the outcome, you figure out how to get there.
Exactly. And there might be some back end ways I don't know how to get there, right? I'm learning every day. There are things I do not understand. So going to the customer and being like, hey, if we do have a way to do it, product will know. Famous, I don't know, but I'll get back to you. I've used and abused that phrase. It's never negatively impacted me. It has only contributed to my credibility and my ability to get an answer, even if the answer is no.
I have one last question to ask you.
Yeah.
What is the one thing that keep you focused on staying proactive?
I think that sometimes I can lose focus if I'm scared of something. If I'm nervous about something, if something's making me worried, that's when I start to lose focus. For me, it's really important to be curious instead of cautious. If I ever find myself being a little bit more cautious, I have to switch my mind. I need to be a little bit more curious. I need to try and figure out what's happening, why it's happening, kind of scientific method my way into a couple of solutions. And 9 times out of 10, just going through that thinking will get me to a really proactive state where suddenly I'm solutioning these problems that were maybe keeping me up at night. And then also just coming back to this idea that my job is to notice things, see things, and interpret the meaning behind them and qualify what that is. Those are what signals are doing for us. I think it's easy to be reactive, especially when you're checking your emails all day long and you have a million things on your to-do list. Absolutely, that can get really daunting. But being curious about why I have a million things to do today. Should I be putting half these people into an automatic onboarding system instead? Are there different ways that I could handle this? Should we be doing a mass webinar? Now I just switched from being really reactive to this list to being more proactive. It might not be something I can implement today, but I can sure implement that tomorrow, right? So I think for me, staying true to curiosity, that's where it's at.
So stay curious.
Exactly.
Stay ahead, stay curious. Thank you so much.
Oh my God. Thank you, Emma.